Welcome to a new Webflow tutorial. I'm Jonas Arlet, the founder of Formburg, where everything revolves around Webflow, from tutorials like this to full professional courses. And today we built a scroll animation using the new GSAP timeline directly in Webflow. And you have already seen the result, and it is a rotating three-dimensional globe. And this globe is created entirely inside the Webflow Designer. I first noticed this type of interaction in my Spotify podcast Year in Review experience, where it is implemented in a slightly different way, but pretty cool. I'm now building this scroll animation here on a sub page of this Nova Mars project. So if you are in the free clonable, you can check it out here on this page. And then we first start by integrating a section element right after our stage, and this will be our orbit section. And then we can give this one a height of 400 VH. This is also the distance, how long we will scroll during the animation. And then also a background color here of our background dark. And then inside we have our orbit sticky wrapper. And this will be 100% width. And the height should be the full height of the browser window, so we use VH here as well. And then we can center all child elements and also make it position sticky. Top is then 0. So it's scrolling within the viewport until the orbit section here is done. Inside here we can place our orbit wrapper element, and this will now be our circle or our globe. We can give this one a 40% EM width and also 40 EM height, so it should be the same values here. Let's give it a border color here first, 1 pixel, and then a bright border color, and also a 50% radius, so we have a full circle. And then let's also make this one overflow hidden. And then inside we have two div elements, which are basically wrapper elements of the lines. One orbit vertical line wrapper element, and this one is 100% width and height, and also position absolute. And now it should be relative to this element, so let's make this one relative. And then zero out all the corners. And we don't see anything here, but that's okay for now, because now we can integrate a line here. And if we go to the Spotify example, you see that the vertical lines are basically only here in the front and not in the back. So it's not basically a real circle element in a 3D space. And that's also a problem that comes up if we integrate a orbit vertical line now. And we can also make this one a position absolute to fill all the parent element. And then we can give this one also a radius of 50% in this case. So let's start with this one to show you the problem. And also a copy bright color. And to get this 3D space, we have to use the orbit wrapper element and go to the 2D and 3D transform options, and then make the distance of the children elements about 120 EM. So I use EM here as well. Then make the origin here the center. And now we can grab the orbit vertical and start by rotating the whole element itself. And if I now move the y-axis here, you see that the circle is now moving towards the center. But you see that we still have a line here in the background. And that's something the Spotify example here doesn't have. And that was the main problem that was pretty tricky to fix, at least for me. And the solution is to give this line here not a border color in all corners, but only on the left side. So let's remove the border here, go to the left, make it 1 pixel, and then copy bright. And now you see that the border color here is now just here and no longer here in the background. It seems like it's fading out here a bit, which is fine. We can tweak this later. But if we go and make this a little bit more like the 45 degree, you can see that it's now looking like it's only in the front. And because we are working in a 3D space now, we have to give this orbit wrapper element here a custom property of transform style, and then I think it's preserve 3D. And the same goes to the orbit vertical element. And then let's also integrate another vertical line here, and let's use a combo class here for now. So every line here could also have their own rotation settings here in the transform options. But the line thickness here could still be a little bit thicker. So let's give this vertical line here maybe 2 pixels. You could also use EM here as well if you use 0.1 EM maybe. And the benefit is if we use EM instead of pixel here in this case, then you could grab the orbit wrapper element, which defines the whole size of our globe, and then go to the font size here and then use EM here as well and just make the whole globe smaller. And this can also be pretty nice by animating maybe the font size later, or just making or scaling it all together with just one settings. In our case, we can leave it with one rem, and this is just in case that we want to make it smaller later, or if we then we don't have to go into every one of these settings here and change the values. But in my case, let's use 2 pixels here for those lines. And then it's looking a little bit thicker than like the wrapper circle here on the outside. A quick note before we continue, this page load animation here is just one example from my new GSAP Interaction Masterclass. We built everything directly in Webflow using the new timeline, starting with the basics and going deeper step by step. And if you are following along with this tutorial here, you will have no problem with the course at all. And next we need horizontal lines here. We can grab or duplicate this orbit vertical element, then just duplicate this class to separate it a bit, make this one horizontal, and we can let's see if we need no, we don't need the 3D space here or the move, the rotation. And then we can remove one line, and this one will now be our orbit horizontal line, and basically our main class. But here in the border settings, we actually need a border in all on all sides. So let's make this one 2 pixels here as well with a bright background color, and then also a 50% radius for now. And then you can see we have basically one line here in the center, and all the 2 other lines here have some kind of radius here as well. And we can achieve this by just placing our horizontal line here a little bit more in the top area. So let's grab it and make -2%. And then we can reduce the height to achieve something like this, but also make it a little bit wider, maybe 106. And now you see that we actually want to place it in the center. So we grab the orbit horizontal wrapper element, we can use a flexbox here vertically and center all the elements. And then we have a smaller one here at the top. So let's duplicate this one, and then we can use a combo class here is 2. And then we can place this one a little bit more here at the top, and also reduce the width to make the radius a bit harder. So it's looking something like this. The thickness of the horizontal lines could be a little bit smaller, so maybe we can use 1 pixel here in the horizontal lines, yeah. And then we have one in the center basically, and this is with no radius, so we can make is center here as a combo class, then give this one a 0 border radius and also no border color, but just 1 pixel height and 100% width. And this one should be here in the center, so we can make also the top one here to auto, and then we have to use a background color here in this case. So we have a center element here, and then they have also a vertical center line. We can also make this one. Let's not this. Let's duplicate this one. Then make is center vertical. And for this one, we can just simply rotate it 90 degrees. So we have it here right in the center. And then we can also use this one here at the bottom. And then I think the fastest way here is to use a third combo class is bottom, because then we can leave all the settings here and just make this one -5% here at the bottom. And then the top is auto, and now it's positioned here. And then we can duplicate this one here at the top, is bottom, make it -23%, and also auto. And then as a last step, we can also integrate a text or title here. inside of our orbit, and this one is just placed position absolute as well with a title and a copy element. And now for the animation, we need more than 2 lines here for the vertical globe animation here. And at the end, we can also reset this one here, because this is just for the designer and to demonstrate you how the whole thing here is built and structured. But we can now delete the combo class or the line with the combo class here, because we basically at the end only need, I think it's 6 of these lines, and all of them have now the same class, so no combo classes, we don't need it with the GSAP interactions, and we have the same settings here in terms of styling and border. And you see that the left side here is now a little bit thicker, because all of these elements have now just the left side with a border color. And to start the scroll animation, we can grab the orbit section element, go to interaction, make a new scroll animation. I name this one 3D globe scroll animation. And in the trigger element, we have the orbit section here selected, which is fine. And this one is also the one that defines the whole size or the length of the scroll animation. So this is the correct one. And the important settings here are the scrub on scroll. So we want a scroll animation and not trigger just some animations. So we leave it here, or scrub on scroll. And then as a first step, we can double click here in the timeline, grab one of these orbit vertical lines and go to the trigger or the target settings, and then use class here. So it's now using the orbit vertical line within our trigger element. And the trigger element is this one here with this icon. And then it's going inside and looking for every element with this class. But at the end, we don't want to animate just all at once. We want to animate them step by step. So we can use the trigger settings here with an offset time of maybe 1 second. And then for the easing, we use the linear easing. And now we want to rotate each of these lines step by step from the left side to the right side. So I choose the property rotate here. And then I can basically delete all the other ones. And then as a starting point, it's already here set to 0, but we can do it again here just in case, and then move it from there to, it should be 180 degrees. So it's all the way here. Sometimes you see that it's better to maybe reduce it a little bit. So it's, I think it's a little bit in front of the outer wrapper border color. And you see, if I now scroll, it's scrolling each one of them step by step to the right side. And it's now taking so long because it now thinks that this is basically all we want to do until the section here is done scrolling. And this is always a problem when you start out with the scroll animations, that you don't get a real feeling how long should this certain animation of these lines now be. And for that, I basically go to the overview here, and then I just set an action step here, which is the set. And this set action is now integrated here at the beginning, but we can place it here somewhere at maybe around 12 seconds. And you see that the scroll end is now where this set action step is placed. But we now can move them maybe to the 3-second line. And because it's now moving only the 6 lines here to the right side, and then it's ending, we could duplicate this action step, move it to the 3-second mark where the first line is ending, and it's all the way here, and then it's just starting to bring them in again from the left side. And you see it's now going almost until the animation here is ending, and this is what we want. But you see that it's here, it seems like they are a little bit thicker here at this point, and this is because we didn't exactly start the timing here at the 3-second mark, where the last or the first line is all the way here on the right side. So this is important here to know. So we have 3 seconds here, and then we start with a delay of 3 seconds. And maybe it would also be interesting to make this one a little bit faster at the beginning. So maybe 0.5 seconds. So they all the lines coming in faster, and then they go a little bit slower towards the end. And here in the Spotify example, you see that the globe is coming in from the bottom outside of the screen, and then it's scaling in. And this is a pretty nice and cool effect. And we can imitate this here as well by grabbing the orbit wrapper element, double click here in the timeline, and this one I bring it here all the way to the top. And this we can use scale here as a name. And then I use for the target here class as well. So it's orbit wrapper element, this element inside of our trigger element. And then for the timing, we can maybe use 3.5. And then we use a scale here from maybe 0.05. So it's pretty small. And then we also want to move this element in the Y direction. We can delete the other ones, 20%. And then back to the 0 mark. So we have to use an end value here as well, maybe 0.8. And it's now scaling the type and all the lines here back to the center, which is feeling pretty nice. And we can just duplicate this one. Then after it, we want to scale it until the end. So it was here at around the 12-second mark. We can remove the from state because it starts where this action step is ending. And then from here, we want to scale it to maybe 2.2. And we don't need the Y movement here, so we can delete this. So it's coming from the bottom into the screen, and then it's getting larger. And now we only have the title element and a copy here left to be animated. So we can double click here in the timeline again. And then we want to move each one of those letters. So we can make the from state here 100% downwards. And now you see it's now moving the trigger element downwards, but we want to use this element. So let's change it here to class. And we want to split the text by, in this case, letter. And then also use the mask here by letter. So we don't see the letter elements here. And then they should go from here to their original position, and all of them are coming in then slowly. And we can also use a stagger effect here with an offset time of maybe 150 milliseconds. And it maybe needs an easing effect here for the letter animation, maybe a power in out here. That's also cool that we can use these easing effects here during a scroll animation. And now we can change the duration maybe to 1.25 seconds. Make it a little bit longer, and this is just a feeling. So let's duplicate this one, and then right when this is almost done, we can animate the copy text. So let's grab the circle copy element, then change the target here to trigger element and back to class. So it's inserting the class name here automatically, so I don't have to manually type it in here. And then we can leave all the settings here, but don't split it by letter. But I think word is enough. And then it's now also moving in all the word elements. And to fine tune this animation, we can duplicate both of them at once. Then grab the duplicated one, bring them here towards at the end, just animate them from where they are back to 100%, but minus. So it's going all the way to the top. But it's also using the mask functionality. And here we can use the same, minus 100%. And this is just a tiny detail, which makes it a little bit more like a premium scroll animation. Then at the end, maybe at the final step, we can delete this set action spacer here, because this action step here is defining the end of the animation. And then we can use maybe the orbit wrapper here. And then just as a last step, animate this class element here with an opacity from where it is. It's right now at 100%, and then we zero this one out. So it's fading out a bit when we scroll towards the next section. And we can preview the animation right here in the Webflow Designer. So let's scroll all the way to the top. And if I scroll a little bit faster, then the circle or the vertical lines are coming in faster, which is a nice side effect. And then the title is coming in. This is working pretty smooth. And then it's going up and out, and the opacity is reduced. Yeah, perfect.